Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep, really deep, into a case that's both fascinating and really disturbing. Um, we're talking about Jeffrey Feltner,
Ah, Jeffrey
a
Feltner.
name that sends chills down your spine if you know anything about, well, healthcare killers.
Right.
He
Uh,
was a nurse's aide, someone you'd think would be caring for the most vulnerable.
Yeah, a position of trust.
Exactly. But, and this is the crazy part, he ended up taking the lives of 7 patients. 7. And get this, he confessed. Then he took it back. Then, well, it's complicated. We're going to try to untangle it all today using primarily his Wikipedia entry.
A fascinating case, really. Full of contradictions.
It really is. So,
Yeah.
was he truly a mercy killer, like he initially claimed, or was there something much darker at play?
Yeah, I mean, was he just trying to cover his tracks? Or did he really believe he was, putting these people out of their misery? We'll dig into all that.
And how did he manage to get away with it for so long?
That's the thing with healthcare killers. They often exploit that trust, that inherent vulnerability. It's a terrifying thought, really.
Absolutely. So, let's rewind the clock. Feltner was born in Miami in '62. His parents, they split up before he was even born.
Mhm.
He grew up with his mother, eventually moved to Melrose, Florida. And from what we gather, he was kind of a loner, you know? Kept to himself, spent a lot of time at gay bars.
Oh, interesting. And it was during this time that he contracted HIV.
Right, you got it. And that detail, it comes back later in a tragic way.
Right, right.
Now, fast forward to 1986. Feltner starts working at New Life Acres, a nursing home.
Okay.
And guess what? His own mother worked there too.
Huh. So already we see a bit of a strange dynamic there.
Yeah, it makes you think, right? Anyway, he gets promoted quickly.
Yeah.
Seems to be well-liked by staff and patients.
The perfect facade.
It's almost like a classic setup, isn't it? Like, you'd never suspect this guy.
No, not at all.
And then between February and April of '88, 5 patients under his care, they just die.
Mm,
At first, it seems natural, old age, illness, that sort of thing.
makes sense.
But then hold on to your hats, folks, Feltner. He anonymously confesses to these murders through a crisis hotline.
Wow, a crisis hotline.
That's right. Says he had this uncontrollable impulse to end their suffering.
Playing the mercy killer card.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But if that were true, then why the secrecy? Why confess anonymously? It just doesn't add up.
So many red flags already.
So who are these victims? We have Bernie Olson, 69 years old, Rita Sugru, 63, William James, 73, Carolyn Abrams, 60, and Ethel Thornton, who is 87,
Okay, so a range of ages.
but all vulnerable, all reliant on care.
Right, the perfect targets.
And Ethel Thornton's case, that's where things get really interesting, really suspicious.
What happened?
They wanted an autopsy, but the coroner, he dismisses it, says it was a heart attack.
Hmm.
But here's the kicker.
So new.
They wanted an autopsy, but the coroner, he dismisses it, says it was a heart attack.
Mm.
But here's the kicker. Feltner, he claims Thornton was bedridden, suicidal, desperate to end her suffering.
It's the bruising.
Exactly. It just doesn't match up, does it?
Not one bit.
So, did the police do anything about these confessions?
Well, they looked into it, but there just wasn't enough evidence to connect him directly to the deaths.
Unbelievable. He confesses, and they still can't pin him down.
It's frustrating, right?
Infuriating. And he didn't stop there. Feltner calls in again, claims he tried to kill another patient,
Oh, wow.
but they dismissed him as a crank caller. Can you believe that?
It's like he was playing games with them.
He was, and he almost got away with it. They did eventually charge him, but only for harassing phone calls, trespassing, and filing a false report.
Seriously, that's it.
I know. 4 months, that's all he got.
4 months for confessing to multiple murders.
It's unbelievable, right? But that's not even the end of the story. It gets even crazier from here, folks.
Oh boy, I can't wait to hear what happens next.
Oh, you won't believe it. But we'll have to save that for after the break.
All right, we'll be back soon to unravel the rest of this twisted tale.
So 4 months, that's all he served. You'd think that'd be enough to scare him straight, right? Keep him away from nursing homes for good.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? But, no, not Jeffrey Feltner.
Nope. He gets out, moves to Daytona Beach, and what does he do? Goes right back to working in healthcare.
Unbelievable.
And this is where things take a really dark turn. July 1989, Doris Moriarty, 83 years old, dies at Client Memorial Center.
Where Feltner was working?
You guessed it. Initially, her death, it's not considered suspicious.
I bet that changed pretty quickly.
Oh, it did. You see, Feltner gets fired from there, ends up at Bowman's nursing home.
Okay.
Another death, 81-year-old Ruby Swisher.
So we've got a pattern here wherever Feltner goes.
Death follows.
It's chilling, really.
And then, August 9th, 1989, Feltner, he does something completely unexpected.
What's that?
He confesses.
Again.
But this time, not anonymously. He goes straight to a local TV station, WESH.
Wow. A public confession. That's a bold move.
Talk about attention-seeking, right?
Right. But why? What was he hoping to achieve by going public?
Well, whatever his motive, it finally got the authorities' attention.
You think? Confessing to murder on live TV tends to do that.
They launch a full-blown investigation, exhume the bodies of 3 victims, Abrams, Thornton, and James.
The ones he confessed to earlier?
Yep. No more dismissing him as a prank caller now.
No, now they were taking him seriously, finally.
So they arrest him, charge him with multiple counts of murder. Seems like the case is closed, right?
You'd think so, but...
Yep.
There's always a but with Feltner.
Always. At his trial, he drops a bombshell. He recants his confessions.
What? He takes it all back.
Every word. Says he only confessed to expose the terrible conditions in those nursing homes, the abuse, the neglect.
So now he's a whistleblower.
That's his story. Says he was trying to protect the vulnerable, even if it meant sacrificing his own freedom.
A martyr for the elderly. Come on.
And get this, his parents, they back him up. They claim he's innocent.
But the evidence, the bruising on Ethel Thornton, the anonymous calls, the public confession, it just doesn't add up.
Right. It's one contradiction after another.
Yeah.
So what are we supposed to believe? Was he a mercy killer? A whistleblower? A manipulative liar?
It's hard to say for sure, but his actions, they suggest a deeper, darker motive than just exposing bad nursing homes.
So what's the explanation? Why confess, then recant? Why claim to be a hero when all evidence points to him being a cold-blooded killer?
Well, there are some theories about the psychology of these healthcare killers. They crave power, control. They get off on deciding who lives and who dies.
So maybe those confessions, they were about feeding that need for power.
Possibly. A way to shock and horrify, to assert his dominance over life and death.
But then why take it all back? Wouldn't that diminish that sense of power?
That's where the manipulation comes in. By recanting, he becomes the victim, the misunderstood hero. Maybe he thought that would get him a lighter sentence.
Playing the system, hoping for a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Exactly. But it didn't quite work out that way.
No, it didn't. In the end, to avoid the death penalty, he pleads guilty to 2 of the murders
2 out of 7.
and gets sentenced to 25 years to life.
25 to life. Did justice prevail?
It's hard to say. It does feel inadequate somehow, doesn't it? Knowing that he could have gotten away with the other 5.
Absolutely. And think about the families of the victims, left with so many unanswered questions, robbed of a chance for a full accounting.
And then, well, there's a final twist to this whole saga. A final layer of complexity.
Ugh. I'm all ears.
Remember how Feltner contracted HIV?
Yeah.
Well, in 1993, just a few years into his sentence, he dies from AIDS complications.
He died in prison.
Just like that. Case closed, but not really. So many questions, so many what-ifs. It's almost like a Greek tragedy, isn't it?
It is. A tale of betrayal, deceit, and ultimately unfulfilled justice.
We've gone through a lot today, from anonymous confessions to public pronouncements, from mercy killings to whistleblowing claims.
And a death that leaves us with more questions than answers.
Jeffrey Feltner, a man shrouded in mystery. His motives forever debated. Was he a monster, a misguided soul, or something in between? We may never know for sure.
And that's the truly unsettling part.
But his case, it serves as a stark reminder that evil can lurk anywhere, even in places meant for healing and care.
It's a call for vigilance, for questioning, for never taking things at face value.
If there's one thing we can take away from this deep dive, it's that we all have a responsibility to protect the vulnerable, to speak up when something seems wrong, to be the voice for those who can't speak for themselves.
Well said. And remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about these kinds of cases, the better equipped we are to prevent them in the future.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the dark heart of healthcare. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.
Yeah, it's terrifying to think about, that someone could exploit that trust, that vulnerability in such a calculated way.
It really shakes your faith in, well, in humanity, doesn't it?
It does, but what can we do? How can we prevent something like this from happening again?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We can't, completely eliminate the risk, but we can certainly minimize it And it starts with, well, knowledge.
Knowledge is power, right? Exactly. Before you entrust a loved one to a nursing home or, any kind of care facility, do your homework.
Homework.
Yeah, research. Look beyond those, those fancy brochures and marketing materials.
The real scoop.
Right. Check their track record, see if there have been any complaints, incidents, lawsuits, anything that raises a red flag.
So, like, dig deep into their history.
Exactly. And don't forget about staff screening. How do they vet their employees? Are they doing thorough background checks? These are all crucial questions to ask.
Yeah, you don't want to just assume everything's on the up and up.
No, definitely not. And this is important. Talk to other families.
Other families.
Yeah, families of current residents, former residents. They'll give you a perspective that you won't get from, official reports or anything like that.
That's a great idea. Word of mouth, it can be so valuable.
It really can.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do your research up front. It could save you a lot of heartache down the line.
So that's before you even place someone in a facility. But what about once they're already there? What should we be looking out for? What are some red flags?
Well, you got to be vigilant. Pay attention to any changes in, your loved one's behavior, their physical condition.
Like what kinds of changes?
Well, for example, unexplained injuries. Bruises, cuts, fractures, those should always be investigated.
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely cause for concern.
Right. And keep an eye out for other things, too, like sudden weight loss, changes in their sleep patterns, increased anxiety, fear.
It's easy to dismiss those as just, part of getting older.
It is, but you got to trust your gut. If something feels off, don't be afraid to ask questions, Voice your concerns to the staff.
So it's about being proactive, not just, passively trusting that everything's okay.
Absolutely. You are your loved one's advocate, especially if they're not able to speak for themselves.
It's a heavy responsibility, but an important one.
It is. And, regular visits, open communication with the staff, those can make a world of difference. It shows that you're involved, that you're paying attention, and honestly, it can act as a deterrent to potential abusers.
That makes sense. If they know someone's watching, they're less likely to try anything.
Exactly. So, yeah, it all comes down to awareness, vigilance, and action. Don't be afraid to speak up, to ask tough questions, to demand answers.
Well, this has been intense.
It has. But important, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, Jeffrey Feltner's story, it's a stark reminder that evil can hide in plain sight, that we can't let our guard down, even in places meant for healing and care.
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in protecting the vulnerable. We can't just assume that the system will take care of everything.
We have to be the eyes and ears, the voices for those who can't speak for themselves.
Exactly. We need to be informed, empowered, and ready to act.
Well said. Thank you for taking us on this deep dive. It's been eye-opening, to say the least.
It's been my pleasure. And to everyone listening, remember, knowledge is power. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe.
And until next time, keep asking those tough questions and never stop fighting for what's right.